this is heavy here. With all the fracturing in fishing, does Matt think there's a path forward in order to grow the sport of fishing?
We don't want to get into the grow the sport.
You can go back and watch the last 6 weeks of BTL replays and talk about growing.
I went on a massive off-air rant with Mark about that. You want the Cliff Notes version of it? I mean, dude, sure. I think about this stuff a lot. Here's a Cliff Notes version of it. Growing the sport means taking people who are not involved in the sport, introducing them to the sport, and then making them participate in that sport on a regular basis. Would you not agree?
Participate or become an engaged fan.
Which leads to participation.
Well, it doesn't have to be. Like, you could, like, fantasy football is a good example of an engaged fan that follows closely but doesn't. I mean, I'm just saying,
okay,
like, there could be other ways.
What value is there an engaged fan if they're not bringing money into that resource then? An engaged fan is more likely like an NFL guy. You get him into the NFL, what's he going to do? He's going to ask for a Seahawks hoodie for Christmas.
Right.
He's going to download the sports package so his fantasy team is better. So he's still spending money on that, right?
Right. But it may not be buying Senkos. It can be spending money. But, yeah, you need to spend money towards the sport in some way, whether it's a service or
buying a license,
apparel, whatever. Yep.
Anything. So here's my thing. So I said this to Mark off air. I said, this is bugging me, Mark. I said, when you got into bowling as a kid, I said, did you just say, you know what, I like bowling. I saw it in the newspaper. I saw it on TV. Mom, take me down to the bowling alley. I want to learn how to bowl. And then you went down there and you were by yourself and you started bowling. And then you got good and you joined a league. He's like, yeah, that's kind of how it went. I said, really? I said, there wasn't anybody in your bowling life, like a mentor or something? He's like, oh, yeah. He said, I went by myself and I didn't know what I was doing. And then this guy came up the second time and he was my mentor in bowling. And he's the one who kind of taught me how. I can't remember his name, what Mark said. And I said, so you had a guy who once you got that initial thing, he was your mentor. He took you under your wing, right? And he said, yeah. I said, okay. So I said, if you really want to grow the sport, I said, it has nothing to do with it doesn't have anything. Like, the only first step is to get them to go fishing once. But if you really care about growing the sport, you need to take that kid who obviously can't cast a Zebco 33 and his bobber's on upside down and he's using a hot dog on the bank when you launch your boat. You need to take him and become his mentor then, because that's a kid who's going to go once or twice. There's no one around. He doesn't have anyone. He's not going to catch anything. And he's going to go, this sucks. Even if he saw it on TV and Ike going Ike and Kevin catfishing and all that. If you're really interested in growing the sport, find those kids or find those people or your buddy. It could be your neighbor or something. Take them under your wing and become their mentor. So growing the sport then has to do with taking the people who have an interest and then taking them under your wing and growing it that way by teaching them about it, not just introducing them to it. You see what I'm saying there? Like, that's where the true growth of the sport is in creating a meaningful connection with someone who knows nothing about it.
Right. And so really, I mean, like, so yes, like you could argue like getting on Fox, getting on Discovery is good. But if guys like us don't help them, right?
Right.
Like,
it's a multi-step process.
Right. Yep. Or the
like
kids
the
don't
Fox
get in.
Introduces it, but then if you as a bass angler, and that goes back to you, every time a guy wins a classic, someone asks him, what do you feel like your responsibility or duty is as a classic winner now? And you'll have guys who will say, you know, I really want to do this, this, and this. I want to represent the anglers. I want to do this. And you'll have other guys that'll be like, what do you mean? It's a freaking bass tournament. I'm going to cash my check and I'm going to go do the same thing again and try to win it
Disney
again.
World.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So it's just kind of individual on each angler. But I mean, that growing the sport takes place at the grassroots level once the initial introduction is made. Because otherwise you have a bunch of people who go do it. Well, like if I like golf, I saw golf, I wanted to golf. I went to the putting green 2 or 3 times when I was 12 years old. There was a doctor who was on the putting green who was like, hey man, like, what's your deal? And I was like, I don't know. I want to golf. My dad showed up to pick me up and he's like, hey, I'll teach your kid how to golf. Man, that's why I love golf now. because that guy saw me at the putting green. I mean, I suck at it, but it's a passion. I spent hundreds of hours golfing at great times because that dude was on the putting green, you know, practicing for the Thursday night men's league, and I was a 12-year-old that didn't have anyone to teach me.
Yeah.
He got me into the sport. He helped grow the sport of golf.
Yeah. It's more about passing knowledge, whether it's like you're taking them fishing, you do like things like Fluke Master have done, things like the Googans have done, where they've really broken it down at the basic level. So people, like, if they don't know somebody, there are resources on the internet, YouTube, things like that, to get enough to maybe be successful in one of your first times fishing. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that grows the sport for sure.
Like growing the sport, like any type of growth takes energy, right? So like look at a plant, look at anything. Like growth takes a whole lot of energy and focused energy. Because like everything is like chaos and disintegration. To actually like grow something takes an immense amount of energy in the perfect conditions. So like, yeah, it's a slow process that takes, if you truly care about growing it, it's not like, boom, we're on Fox, the sport is grown. No, the freaking seed is planted. Then it's up for the people who are in it to grow it from there.
Yeah. So do you,
my opinion.
Tin Horse Monty asks, do you think YouTube grows the sport? Yes or no?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. YouTube grows the sport because that's taken the place of a surrogate mentor in many cases. I mean, look at it. So like the hardcore tournament videos, let's take Brandon's videos. Like Brandon's videos kick ass, right? So Brandon's videos, awesome. What, 30, 40,000 views on that? Like a how to tie a Palomar knot video. Like go look at those videos. Those have hundreds of thousands of views. That's like the surrogate mentorship right there.
Like I really like the Hallman High, like like Bradley's.
Yeah, absolutely.
The high school fishing, like that's the kind of stuff. Like
100%. But just the basics and stuff have tons of freaking views. How to rig a Texas rig. What a Carolina rig is.
Yeah, there's a ton of channels. Like, you know, we're really bass heads, but like every once in a while, just because I'm like interested in the whole YouTube thing, I'll go look at these fishing channels, and there's guys that just fish off the bank. Way more
views because that's
more views.
That's like, their surrogate mentor because they can relate to that because they've gone and fished off the bank and gone, damn, I don't know how to catch a fish off the bank. But here's someone who's catching a fish off the bank that I can learn from.
Saltwater drum, if it's a catfish.
Exactly. They just want their string stretched. Absolutely. We're like in this vortex that's so tournament bass fishing, tournament bass fishing, tournament bass fishing. And you don't even realize how centric it is, how small it is, what a small field of people you're impacting. I mean, to get good at something, you have to do that. I mean, you have to be totally like that. But I mean, there's a whole nother world of people who bass fish out there who don't understand any of that. I mean, dude, there's a ton of people who don't even know how guys get in the Bassmaster Classic.
Oh yeah. I mean, I one thing I've gotten so many questions like, how did you get to the Vermilion Regional, Rich?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, Fighters FG Net videos for the basics.
No, I see. Anything that's Aaron Martin's knot tying is not a basic YouTube video.
If you have to take your shoes off and get your tongue wet, like that's not a basic video.